So next, we are really going to be getting to know more. And one of the things that is so important is about creating purpose and how that purpose can be more equitable. We're going to be hearing from Brian Heinen and Fernanda Accorsi.
Thank you. It really matters that you guys are here with us. My name is Fernanda. Thanks, Brian. We speak a lot about what we're going to speak today, so it will be very interesting to share with more people. But what really matters is that it seems like you guys are pretty much interested as well in purpose-driven projects that are involving NFTs. So, did you introduce yourself? Can I
go for it, Fernanda.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, please.
So my name is Fernanda Accorsi. I usually say that I'm a marketing and communications manager for commercializing projects, platforms, and services which can demonstrate a social and environmental impact. And right now, besides other collateral projects that I have, I'm the head of marketing and communications for Plastics, which is a marketplace that is connecting plastic recovery and recycling projects in emerging countries with companies and individuals that are willing to sponsor their practices. So we're trying to bring equity to all the different stakeholders, and that's why we're having this conversation here today. Thank you, Brian.
No, thank you, Fernanda. And again, my name is Brian Heinen. I represent a group called Blockchain in Europe. As well, we have a project called Alpheus. I help transform organizations into innovation leaders by focusing on next-level community development, product commercialization, brand, and marketing. So I got into this space in 2013 or 2014 with the Bitcoin Foundation. And since then, I've been working on helping clients wrap their mind around blockchain integration. And I always like to start by saying that I'm a skeptic of this industry. Actually, this is a great example of it. There's so much hype around what we're doing here, and so I'm trying to get people to understand, well, how does this actually help us solve business problems? How does this actually help us do what we're doing or evolve what we're doing? So I want to start with that. It would be nice if this became more of an intellectual experiment. So if anyone has anything they want to throw out at us, please feel free. I think it's very dull to sit here and do Q&As back and forth. I like to have a little more engagement in the platforms.
Oh, me too, please, and raise your hands, and if you have an interesting project. And if I may, I don't know how you guys understood how I introduced myself. I didn't mention NFT when I said what I was doing, right? I said a marketplace to help recovery projects that are recovering plastic, not only, but waste in emerging countries, to actually be able to do that on a better way, to get it to be incentivized and to do it on a more transparent way. And the only way that we can do that today, not the only way, we have other ways, of course, but the best mechanism that we can use right now is by using NFT, which tokenize this recovery data and makes it unique. So we can kind of reduce the fraud and the corruption in the waste management sector. So again, as Brian said.
Well, maybe we can start from there.
Okay.
So I like to think of it as I would like to be convinced a little bit more about how this adds value. So if I have a business problem, how am I solving this business problem by integrating what you guys are working on, what tools that you're working on? So the question that I like to throw out to all you guys is, are we talking about a revolution or a regeneration? So let's say, who thinks we're talking revolution when we're talking about how we're integrating blockchain technology and NFTs specifically?
Raise your hands. Revolution.
Revolution.
Okay, cool.
Fernanda? Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Very nice. Good. We're going to get to that. I'll come, if I can circle back around, regeneration. I know it's hard to answer if you don't know what it is, but that's great.
So he thinks regeneration. Okay.
Thank you for your question, because that's...
I'm neither, and we'll explain soon.
Okay.
Yeah?
Go for it. You're neither or you're both?
I'm neither until something happens. So then we can try to understand how exactly plays this role.
So I'm both, and I guess to get back to there, for me, I see revolution as being about the hype. It's transactional. It's short-term. It's reactive to what's going on. And in marketing, we like to talk about how marketing is eliciting an emotional response. So that's why when we talk about revolution, you write a lot better songs about revolution than you do about regeneration. Regeneration now, I mean, you can think of it even on the cellular level. When you regenerate your cells, it's something that kind of existed already, but you're going to regenerate them, hopefully in a healthier sense. So regeneration, in my concept of it, is looking at it as being proactive. It's more about branding. It's about building trust. It's about experiences. It's a longer-term solution to what we're doing. Now, my answer would be both. So I wouldn't run from the hype that we all have in this industry. However, we really need to mature past this idea that this is only about the hype. It's about how can we use regeneration to actually solve true business problems. And this is going to lead us to what we're talking about here about make purpose equitable.
Well, in my case, I think it's going to be both as well at some point, but I'm saying neither at the beginning, as I think that this business are trying to find ways of evolving what they're doing or doing it in a better way. As I said, waste management, how can we reduce fraud? How can we reduce corruption? How can we incentivize each stakeholder in the whole value chain? Most of these people, informal cooperatives, people working as well on the ground floor, recovering it, how much they're being incentivized. And when you start working with new technologies, disruptive technologies, and you're bringing innovation, you're trying to evolve what you're doing. But you don't know that you are in the middle of a revolution until it actually happens, and you looked back and you say, oh wow, that's cool, that really revolutionize what we're doing, right? And you still don't know if it's going to regenerate, although maybe your goal is to regenerate environment, to make sure that, in our case, that this waste is not ending up out there. But until that happens, I really believe it's evolution.
Okay, and I think if I'm hearing you correctly, so like I like to say, I'm not in the blockchain, I'm not in the NFT space, I'm in the consumer behavioral change space. And these are tools that I utilize in my tool belt to help leverage how we could help people solve problems. So a revolution, a lot of times, will have enormous pushback by establishment. And so people with a revolution think, oh, that's what we want. Sure, to an extent. But most revolutions, or I would argue almost all revolutions, fail. The ones that have sustainability, and now getting back to what we're talking about here, build that longer term experience, build that trust with the community that's a part of it, and make it equitable for the people who are going to participate in it. So most of the revolutionists, who are important, don't misunderstand, I think it's really important, the early adapters, but I think as an industry, we really need to get past this fighting over these early adopters and start turning our conversation and the narrative into how we can onboard people who are just looking to solve business problems. And oh, by the way, we're doing it on an immutable ledger. Oh, by the way, we're using a self-enforcing smart contract that's connected to a digital asset that allows us to collect more data along the user journey as we go through with your brand or with your organization.
May I interrupt you a little bit?
No, please
so
do.
We're coming from some panels as well. One of our colleagues that was just presenting something as well some minutes ago was talking about how NFTs can be a very interesting tool to be used for companies or for governments, especially in emerging countries, right? And countries underdeveloped and on development. And we go back to this, like what an interesting world we have out there to actually be able to share this equity, to make sure that all of us can enjoy our lives on a more fair way. And even on a conference like this, how many people from these particular sectors, countries, and again, I'm going back to waste management. Like we usually have the people from the top board representing, sitting around the table, but where are these people representing? So like, how are we actually using NFTs to go back and incentivize and make sure that these people are going to be representing their people here?
Let me jump on one quick thing. I like to make sure that, well, I'm not saying NFTs are going to do it, it's people are going to do it.
Yeah,
okay.
Of course.
So NFTs are not going to revolution or change anything.
Yeah. First is a mechanism. It's a mechanism we're using, for us it's helping, at least in our case, it's helping us just to make sure we can track it and we can have a more transparent way of seeing that value chain, at least for us. And we are being able to incentivize, once we see it, we are able to incentivize each one of them because they're doing something on a more transparent way. They're being able to recover more, they're being able to employ more.
So if we start to connect the dots a little bit, and please, if you don't agree, say no, or say something, because I guess for me, I believe people out there, like, they want to make change, or they want to participate in a more sustainable and healthier future. I think intrinsically that's something that most people want to do, but they have a hard time leveraging those resources or being a part of an organization. They find it very cumbersome to try to get that. I think there are a lot of organizations, whether the incentive, the driver is just because they have to have ESG in their marketing, that would like to also create platforms that are going to incentivize. But for them as well, the return is very cumbersome. There's such a disconnect. And this is now where, getting back to the topic of NFTs, it's just this small mechanism that can evolve the way that we're able to connect these two people together, that we can create more of a multiplier effect of how organizations can work together with their community, collecting all that data, using that data in a more secure way that saves them time, which is the most valuable resource, right? And I think, and this is also why we wanted to bring up a couple other people, not to be like a sales pitch, but like you can actually start to see like even what plastics is doing, for example, or what we are trying to do. I mean, there is a way that you can connect these organizations that want to help people and people who want to participate and just don't know how.
Yeah, in our, let me just give an example because I think it's easier. Sometimes as well I'm on these panels and I don't exactly know what people do. So in our case, what we do exactly, what plastic does, we are tokenizing the data of a certain amount of plastic that is recovered, right, by these cooperatives. So we tokenize this and...
Cooperatives that are, for the most part, like nonprofits that are not...
They are profitable, Brian. They need to be, because what they're doing, they recover this plastic and they are preparing it and they're going to sell it for recycling, right? When they sell it, it means that they're issuing an invoice and they're going to pay taxes on it. So the first income stream that they have is by selling this material. What we're doing when we tokenize this data, we're saying, okay, we're proving that this material is actually being sent for recycling, which is the next step, and it won't end up on the landfill or anywhere else, or to be incinerated, for instance. So to be able to continue to develop their work.
And you can say that because of the tax invoice.
Exactly,
yeah.
Because of the tax. They're paying tax, which means that if they're paying for something, that means that it won't end up anywhere else, right? So they're really selling it. So when we tokenize this data and we transform it in an NFT, and that's what I'm saying, it's just a mechanism, right? So this NFT is going to become a plastic credit on our platform, a plastic recovery guarantee, that's how we call it. And it's going to be available to be purchased, to be sponsored by a company that is producing plastic and needs to compensate for that, and like still did not have enough time to change like the whole journey with the plastic within their industry. So that's what we're doing. And when we do this and we sell this plastic recovery guarantees, these projects are going to be the ones compensated. So we're giving them equity as well. They are the artists mainly on our platform.
So just boiling it down, basically you guys have created, there was a process that was already happening. You're going to people and saying, you continue doing the process the same way. There's just one little evolution about your process that we could use the immutability of the NFT and the tracing from the self-enforcing smart contract to make you more money so you can reinvest that back into your business.
So we're solving problems for the two sides, right? Okay. For the recovery projects that are actually needing to be funded, and they need to earn more so they can employ more, so they can invest in infrastructure, they can be recovering more. And on the other hand, the companies, that they also need to demonstrate that they are committed. They really need to demonstrate to their customers, to their consumers, that they are trying to leave a positive footprint, environmentally speaking, and social as well, because this project involves a lot of social challenges as well.
I mean, so it's still, we both come from a marketing background, so it's still marketing. There's still hype to it. I mean, these organizations are going to still, like, say it's part of their, I guess, ESG. No, I'm talking about the brands are going to be buying the credits. So there's still that hype that's marketing, that's getting out there. They feel good. They put a logo on their packaging that it's part of this. But yet there is a regeneration as well part that happens to it. And I guess for me, when we talk about making purpose equitable, it is about how can we, because the people that these organizations that are hiring, that are creating recovering the plastic, they're hiring people to collect the plastic. So we're not talking about, like, we're talking like developing countries, we're talking about...
Most of it, yes.
So they're creating a more equitable, or an economy there for people to be working further. And I know we're focusing on hers. I mean, we had some other examples, but I mean, I guess for me, and I can talk to you more about what we do with Alpheus, but that's not really the point. The point for us is that there is something we could do that is a utility with the NFTs. There is something we could do with all this energy to want to participate in a more sustainable and equitable future.
We can give other examples as well. I was just talking about waste management because this is my project, right? But in food, for example, like we see NFT project, not only but blockchain, now NFTs as well, evolving into NFTs. Like in food supply chains, how complex it is. So many farmers in so many countries. There is this beautiful project called Ethic Hub as well, working with farmers in Mexico to make sure that their coffee is getting where it needs to get, but they're being properly incentivized. So I don't, like, again, it should not be a sales pitch at all, but there's so many beautiful projects out there. We don't have a lot of time. Maybe we should open, see if anyone wants to.
Yeah, I just, so if we would ask again about the revolution or regeneration, does it make sense, or are we way off? Please be critical. We love it.
Our friend left.
For me, revolution and regeneration both sound like quite positive things for the people, right?
Right.
I would really like to get a view on some of the more, I guess, darker/negative aspects as well.
So regeneration and revolution are both seem very contextually positive, and you'd like to know a little bit more than negative. We have 10 seconds.
9, 6.
It's easy for me. Revolution, there's going to be pushback. So that's why I also would say I'm against this idea of disintermediation as well. 5 seconds. Disintermediation as well, because these organizations have already put a lot of effort to build trust. So why are we trying to scare them out of this equation? So the same thing, I don't want to revolt against, I want to regenerate what they're doing. So the powers that be, I want to get them to be inclusive with what we're trying to do. But we got to go.
Yeah.
Thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you for being
we appreciate
here.
it.
Really, I'm very happy to speak with you if you want to. Thank you.